We actually are getting therapy at Camp Half-Blood.
People have different reactions to stress. Some of them just summon the corpses of the undead.
Hermes, yeah, that one, I don't know whether you've heard of him. You know, great and mighty Leo? If I combust, I combust. I agree, Nico, just do it already. Is that Will's mom? No! Did he die? Stop traumatizing Nico.
Every once and again, I hear that nagging voice inside of my head telling me that I'm too old for the things that I like, so I didn't actually plan on buying this book. However, in my defense, firstly, it came out on September 23rd, which is my birthday. And secondly, for the past 2 weeks, I've attended a very short but intensive Italian course, and during that time, a Nico D'Angelo book comes out. So I feel like all stars aligned for me to buy this. Before we begin reading, hi, my name is Katerina, and as you can hear, I'm not a native speaker, so sorry in advance for mistakes in my English. I'll try enunciating as clearly as I can. I also made a bingo card for the Court of the Dead. Unfortunately, I wrote down most of these predictions before the title reveal, before we knew anything about the book, so lots of these predictions are not relevant anymore, but I hope that I at least got some of them right. I think one of the reasons why I actually ended up buying this book is the cover. It's so much prettier than the cover for The Sun and the Star, and I think not drawing the faces was a good idea. I really like the purple, and I wonder whether the cover art is giving us clues about the content of the book. For example, these 3 shadowy figures looming over our main characters. It looks like 1 female silhouette and 2 male, so I'll keep that in mind. Also, I don't remember the previous books perfectly, so I might not notice if the characters are a bit OOC. Maybe that's for the better. Well, let's get into it. It's been 3 months since demigod boyfriends Nico D'Angelo and Will Solis returned from Tartarus, and there hasn't been a single quest for them in all that time. He's writing all that time as if demigods go on quests that often. Honestly, going on quests every 3 months sounds like a nightmare. You know, I might not be as doomed with my bingo card, because one of the things that I wrote was Mr. D being an icon, and this book just starts with Mr. D and Nico sitting on yoga mats on the beach, so honestly, we're close to crossing that out. Yeah, bright pink parka, a matching beanie with a pom-pom on top. Yeah, we're crossing that out. Didn't expect that to be the first thing to be crossed out on my bingo card. No way. I feel like the fans were joking about these kids needing therapy, and, you know, not always joking, for years, and we actually are getting therapy at Camp Half-Blood. I mean, they should have thought of that years earlier, but I guess better late than never. The Cocoa Puffs. A couple of months ago, Fear had given Will a panic attack just by brushing against his ankle. Well, that sounds serious, but also, I guess I can cross out the second thing on my bingo card now, because it had to do with Cocoa Puffs. I remember this quote from the previous book where Nico said that he's gonna use them to scare the living daylights out of people on the regular basis. I kind of feel like it counts already. Yikes, having your negative emotions following you around and looking kind of cutesy, but reminding you of terrible events from the past. That's not, you know, your typical Disney princess animal sidekick. Oh wow, Will Solis is practicing archery? I shouldn't have dedicated a slot on the bingo card to who kissed who and how many times, because I'm gonna have to count that. And also new offsprings. Does it mean that I can cross out my prediction about Camp Half-Blood not being empty in this book? Because that's something that I didn't really like in the previous one. It was just so weird for the camp being almost completely empty. Many demigods just don't have anywhere to go to, even after the summer. Now campers sitting wherever they wanted. But remember these old days when how much bravery it took for Annabeth to walk up to Percy's table? You kids, you don't understand what it was like. Wow, just imagining how many Percy Jackson fans there are taking all of these quizzes about who your godly parent is, and now we see a demigod who's like, yeah, my dad is like Hermes, yeah, that one. I don't know who that is. Some obscure god. I don't know whether you've heard of him. He has like this wing thingies on his feet. Like, seriously, it makes me want to lecture this kid. Can I just ask for the two of you to come here for a day or two, max? Something is telling me that it's not gonna be a day or two. They're the only counselors left. It's so weird seeing Will and Nico as the oldest ones. That makes me so sad. I remember how bittersweet it felt to finish the Trials of Apollo, because it really felt like saying goodbye to Camp Half-Blood, or at least the Camp Half-Blood that we knew, because things are changing now, new demigods, new generation, and I feel like, I'm with the previous generation, and it feels like, it's not my story anymore. I've grown up. I remember some of the critiques of the previous book being that the word boyfriend was overused. So I feel like the people that wrote this about the previous book are not gonna like this in this book too. Not Chiron not wanting to see Will and Nico go help Hazel because they've got lots of unpaid labor to do at Camp Half-Blood. I mean, I'm joking, of course, but the fact that it's Nico's and Will's responsibility to handle so many new campers. Mr. D is iconic, suggesting dragon riding to an 11-year-old newbie when dragon riding isn't even a thing. He was also thinking about his friend Jason Grace, the former praetor of Camp Jupiter, another blonde demigod who looked good in purple. Oh yeah, that's just required on making sure that the Jason drama stays fresh on our minds. Ew, no, not Lord of Darkness. I feel like they have a competition about who gives the other the cringiest nickname possible. No, but Nico not being able to enjoy relaxing is so relatable. I don't have a tragic backstory, and I can definitely relate to that. Chiron saying why shadow traveling is a bad idea, but my brain just keeps saying, shadow travel, shadow travel. I do want him to do that. If I combust, I combust. I agree, Nico, just do it already. You know what? I'm not sure what I feel about Chiron saying that I'm not supposed to pick favorites, but I've grown very fond of you two. I mean, I understand Mr. D saying that. I like Mr. D acting that way, but Chiron? No, I don't know. I want Chiron to be more impartial for some reason. Demonic dust bunnies. That's the best description of Cocoa Puffs that I've read so far. I do like people using Nico's full name. Like,
Please, Nico D'Angelo, follow us. Like, just Nico D'Angelo is such a cool name. I like Rick Riordan using Nico's full name in as many situations as possible. The Roman demigods are like, great and mighty Leo? And Nico and Will are just, that idiot. Oh my god, he's kind of a dork. A jerk too sometimes, not telling that he came back from the dead, should have punched him harder. They're in Camp Jupiter now, and I'm reading about the field of Mars, and I have such a sad association with it because the fields of Mars in Ukraine, that's a military graveyard in Lviv. Also, currently in Ukraine, the cars that transport dead soldiers called on the shield cars from the Roman, not Roman Spartan saying to return with the shield or on the shield, meaning dead. Yes, Nico, I also still prefer our slice of woodsy chaos. Camp Half-Blood forever.
Hey, I'm back. Something that I noticed when I flipped through the pages that I read is that Hestia has a child. Hestia, maiden goddess. I mean, we know that Apollo somehow managed to have a child with another man, so I guess I shouldn't be so surprised. But it's just, we know that Hera tried having a child on her own, and that was Hephaestus, and he's kind of ugly. So how did Hestia manage to do that? And now the Minotaur can talk and probably is willing to change. Overall, the idea of monster redemption in Percy Jackson doesn't really surprise me. We've had good monster characters like Tyson, Ella, the 100 Handers, Bob, and so on. And in the previous Nico D'Angelo book, it was mentioned that Jarian, the Triple G Ranch guy, has changed. So maybe that was a sign of what's gonna happen in this book. It makes sense for a story like Percy Jackson where monsters aren't just evil because they're monsters. But I did not expect the Minotaur to talk, probably because he always seemed dumb. I find the idea of the Minotaur having the voice of the narrator of an audiobook so funny because I imagine this very distinct voice, this voice of an older man, kind of, soft and deep. I usually don't like this voice when I listen to like teenage books because it kind of makes it sound more awkward, but it's still a cool voice, and now I'm just gonna hear it every time the Minotaur speaks. Thank you. I know you must be confused. My story, well, sometimes even I cannot believe it. Yeah, I mean, your mother fucked a bull. Yes, Kit Kat says medicine. I can cross out another slot on my bingo card. I think it is symbolic that all of this redemption storyline for monsters starts with the Minotaur, the first monster. I mean, technically it was the Fury, but with the Minotaur, we definitely knew who he was, and with the Fury, it was, his math teacher, pre-algebra teacher. He's the monster that everyone would instantly recognize because, there were lots of monsters killed in the Riordanverse, but you wouldn't remember all of them. I mean, at least I assume so. Maybe you do. However, it was mentioned here that Percy killed him twice, and to be honest, I forgot about the second time, so I opened Wikia, and some of the things that I've read to refresh my memory were kind of disturbing. The Minotaur was clad in armor and carried a large axe whose blade was shaped like the letter Omega, the last letter of the Greek alphabet, possibly because it is the last thing a demigod sees before they're killed. Before the fight, Percy sees that the Minotaur has camp necklaces tied to his twin swords to show how many demigods he had defeated. I mean, I guess now we have the explanation that he just had to follow orders, but that's especially cruel. Also, he led the charge across the Williamsburg Bridge against the Apollo campers led by Michael Yu, so I wonder whether it is especially traumatic for Will, considering that we know how many Apollo campers died in that battle. You know, this is the same pair I wore when I first fought Percy Jackson, but he said nothing about my stitchwork. Nothing. Probably weird to be nitpicky about the Minotaur's underwear, but didn't he wear Fruit of the Loom underwear? And hey, I did not remember that. That's just what Wiki says. Will's personality was composed of equal parts warmth, compassion, and optimism, with a sprinkling of humor and tasty baked goods. That's so cute. Oh yeah, Nico having nightmares. Why are my predictions so good? Ooh, and Impusa. I am looking forward to seeing them in the Battle of the Labyrinth adaptation. I think that's gonna be cool. Also, Will, no bisexual chaos allowed today. Nico had only been at the mythic Doja Casa house a few minutes. Is that a Barbie reference? I need a fan art of Nico and Will going to both Barbie and Oppenheimer, and Nico dressed for Oppenheimer and Will rocking that pink. Nico admired his optimism. Personally, he considered mandatory physical activity almost as intolerable as his PTSD. Other than that, all new. Members of the 5th cohort had a habit of either getting promoted or dying. Nico shadow traveling to cut the distance that he was supposed to run. That's cool. Work smarter, not harder. The 5th cohort runners stumbled to a halt when they saw Nico. They looked stunned, sweaty, and extremely irritated. Will stared at him in disbelief. "Where have you been?" Nico asked, trying to sound nonchalant. "I've been waiting forever." Will bent over his hands on his knees. When he straightened again, he was laughing. "You didn't, you little cheater." That is a cute solangelo moment. That counts. "You can use a regular bow," she advised her legionnaires, "but all the real girlies use one of these." She brandished her weapon of choice, a heavy-duty two-handed crossbow called the Manubulista. "Nice," Nico said. "Was the armory out of rocket launchers?" That's savage, Nico. "And we're demigods," Will added proudly. "We have a natural feel for this stuff. It just requires letting your instincts take over." "ADHD for the win," said Nico. "That's how a 12-year-old defeats the god of war." "That sword looks very sharp," Nico grinned mischievously. "It is." I love Nico. I really like Nico and Will instructing the demigods together. Like a team. Are you saying I was like a wolf? No, more like, what's that other territorial pack animal? A nerd. You have your whole life to take care of yourself. This isn't like a demigod quest where you seek out an item, solve a puzzle, defeat some horrible creature, and then it's done. You're doing this every day, every moment of your life. Perhaps you shouldn't race toward a finish line that doesn't exist. I think that's the most beautiful quote in this book so far. Savannah offering a Tessera tech support is so funny. Like, have you tried taking the bracelet off and putting it back on again? It's giving, have you tried turning it off and on again? I also like how each time a mythic was in trouble, they asked for Nico's help because they trusted him. Nico was always good with outsiders, and I love that about him. I'm halfway through the book, and so far, Will hasn't been anything more than a pretty accessory, which makes me so sad because I feel like you can explore a lot with this character. Will just acts like Nico's therapist in this book. I understand that the Court of the Dead focuses on monsters, mythics from the underworld, so that's Nico's thing, the same way it was in the previous book. And I mean, it literally says a Nico D'Angelo adventure, so I know it makes sense for the focus to be on Nico, but Will deserves to be more than a sidekick, and he's not more than a sidekick in this book. Would be nice to have a book where Will feels comfortable, and maybe for Nico it's not really his element.
the contrast to these books, but that's not a critique. That's just something that I thought would be nice to see. Still, I'm definitely not trying to say that this is a bad book. This is not a bad book. It's just not a solangelo book. So I probably should stop talking about solangelo because there's just so much going on in this story. Now that I'm reading it, I feel like the story of Monster's redemption is something that we inevitably would have gotten to. It just makes so much sense for Riordanverse. Okay, now Will radiates not only light but also heat. My prediction about Will getting new powers also turns out to be right. You could kill me now, she says. But isn't she immortal? And if she's a goddess, can't she just disappear? No, she had to kick Hazel in the shin and run. Okay, I guess minor gods are just so pathetic sometimes. I probably shouldn't be so surprised. I mean, we've all seen Terminus. I could just leave you two alone, maybe pop over to New Rome and ask Percy and Annabeth if they want to join me instead. Nico groaned. Please leave that boy alone. That's the whole fandom when Rick Riordan once again decides to put Percy through another traumatizing adventure. Nico feeling itchy from wearing an illusionary suit reminds me of that scene from Wednesday with her being allergic to color. Wait, Will recognizing the voice. The voice being described as reedy and nasal, as if designed to whine. Is that what I've heard about Octavian being there? Okay, now I see why it's the court of the dead, because he's dead, as he should be. I glow, I heal people, and I know things should be the first quote on Will's Wikia. I know this is one of these poster quotes. I actually used it for my social media accounts too. I think mine says, I study, I drink tea, and I draw things. Oh, they killed this mythic. This suddenly turned so sad. No, he was an Etsy creator. They should tell Hades. Hades wouldn't sanction something like this. Tantalus! Oh my god. Oh my god. Yeah, you're right, Will. That was the right reaction. But that's not Octavian. That wasn't Octavian who Will recognized. That was Tantalus. I am he, the mighty Pirithous. Asterion did not even flinch. Who? Who? Will whispered to Nico. Who? I remember that one of the heroes had a friend that convinced him to kidnap Persephone, but I don't remember whose friend that was. And also them acting surprised that these people are the ones to judge the mythics. I'm not so surprised considering that one of the people that judge mortal souls is King Minos. I mean, considering that Zeus is the one who's also responsible for order and justice. How dare you interrupt this proceeding? Do you hate justice? Nico grabbed him by the throat, which shut the ghost up. It had probably been centuries since a mortal had been able to make physical contact with him. I am the Ghost King, Nico said. You don't scare me. I love Nico being badass. I really do. Trios in the world of myth were always powerful, usually deadly, and sometimes godly. I will highlight this sentence. What? What is happening? No! Did the Minotaur just die? Did he die? No way, he's too important to die. He doesn't have the privilege? And it means more trauma for Nico. Stop traumatizing Nico. Why did it turn so dark? I thought that was a silly additional story. Can characters die in this? She had no chance with the red-robed guard spear at her back. So Nico raised the dead. When in doubt, raise the dead.
People have different reactions to stress. Some of them just summon the corpses of the undead. I mean, I know that Hazel didn't die, but that was just still so dramatic. I did not expect this book to get so dramatic. I mean, in that regard, it definitely exceeded my expectations. How did the quality of the book increase so suddenly after the page 200? Right now, I'm reading Nico's Dreams, and they've gotten even darker and more specific and more dramatic. I'm really enjoying this. When they said that Hazel and Asterion disintegrated into dust, I also thought about Percy's mom, and they confirmed it in the next paragraph. So they're probably not dead. I mean, I knew that Hazel wasn't dead, but the Minotaur as well. So now we have a chapter from Hazel's perspective. She's trapped with the Mythics, and I feel like I know how someone trapped them. I remember this device from the beginning of the book, the one that petrified the camper, but it was said that if you have 4 of those, you could trap someone. Yeah, I was right. I was right about how they're holding them inside. I mean, I think it was kind of obvious, so I can't even be proud of guessing that. That was very easy. Hazel knew Asterion had a point, but she wanted to argue that being dead was no excuse for being callous. She'd been dead. She'd gotten over it. Yes, girl. No! Is that Will's mom? Curly blonde hair, tight black jeans, cowboy boots, musician of some kind. Can she see through the mist? Is that how we meet her? Oh, I'm so excited for this. Wow, she can see through the mist very well. That's such a coincidence, though. Hey, Will, Hazel said, feeling wobbly. Will saw us? That's him! Oh my god. Yeah, what were the odds of running into Will's mother in San Francisco? She says that she's glad that Nico is here too, but she hasn't met Nico, hasn't she? I kind of hope that she hasn't, because I really want them to meet for the first time. Come on, Uncle Rick, you don't do that off screen or like in between the books. That's too important. I mean, he's known for making the couples start dating between the books, which is unacceptable in my opinion, but the story has gotten so much more intriguing than how it was when it just started. I feel like I should take a break. I was reading for most of the day, but I can't seem to find the right moment to stop. Okay, so Hades knew what was happening the whole time. It's just another case of gods not being able to intervene with some affairs. That was Hades making sure that Naomi stumbles across the cage. Talk to that boyfriend of yours. He is a son of Apollo. I'm sure whenever you need it, he will help remind you of the brighter side of life. Nico smiled. Even if it's the inferior side. My child of darkness. Proud dad moment. Someone showed up at the entrance to camp. They claimed to know where Hazel is. We're meeting Will's mom. Hazel was exhausted. As I am right now, I really should stop reading. She ran toward him, squealing with delight, and pulled him into a warm hug. I feel like that's what all of the readers want to do. So many times I've seen people referring to Nico as their child, my son sort of character. Because he really is that type of character. Thank you for loving my son. Oh, that's so beautiful. I was right again. I'm so glad to be right. But yeah, he tried kidnapping Persephone. Frank scowled. I'd like to avoid that scenario and also not have a book written about us. Yeah, I don't know how to break it to you, buddy. Hazel is having such a hard time in this book. But I also really like her role in the story. She's amazing here, which is not something that I could say about Will. I mean, really, if I had to rate the characters on the cover by their importance, number 1 would be Nico, then Hazel, then Asterion, and only then Will. And I'm not even sure that he's number 4. Maybe he's even further down the list. Which makes me sad because there's a lot you can do with his character. You can expand it a lot. Once again, I do like this book overall. Actually, in terms of plot, I think I like it better than The Sun and the Star. This is definitely the story worth being told, which is especially important for a sequel that was not planned right away. In terms of concept, great story. In terms of Solangelo, they're just trying to remind us the whole time how glad Nico is to have such an amazing boyfriend like Will. Entranced by the 2 beautiful liars who appeared on the verge of doing something violent and possibly entertaining. I mean, I gotta admit, I am very entertained by this chapter. Mary and Tantalus turned to dust? Are they dead completely, or are they back in the underworld? I was hoping for Hades. Gods, you're pathetic. The Chains of Prometheus! That's so cool! I mean, scary, but cool. I love you, you big, beautiful cow. It's the last thing I expected Nico to say. I know he's being possessed, but still. Be careful, you gorgeous cow. Wow, do you have to, Nico asked. This whole final battle is a fever dream, and I'm loving every second of it. The entire park was full of house cats. All he knew was that when you have to guess which cat is your boyfriend, you have a problem. This is so intense. Oh, Hecate's here. I remember her. Would be weird if I didn't, considering that the previous Riordan verse book was about her. Oh yeah, a schist joke. Would Olympus allow it? Hecate chuckled. Olympus doesn't know what it is doing most of the time. True. She turned to Nico. Thank you for allowing me to share your mind. It is a beautiful place. Wow. Semele being a goddess is a plot twist. Also, a goddess of frenzy? That is weirdly similar to Dionysus. He's not her son, isn't he? Oh, and now Ariel and Savannah are friends. This is so nice. This is such a touching ending too. I realized that the finale of this story makes me think of the Heroes of Olympus, because it was always very chaotic but also very fun, and I feel like the second half of this book is on that level. Yes, Dionysus is her son. That is a plot twist. That was a plot twist for me, and it's amazing. Nico and Will talking about how much Nico has changed feels a lot like the authors calling out the people that say that Nico is out of character, like it's directly aimed at all of you. I like this book. It just wasn't exactly what I expected, which is why I was a bit whiny, I guess. I just needed some time to come to terms with what exactly this book is, because The Sun and the Star felt a lot like Nico D'Angelo character study, and this one isn't. The Reese character grows for Nico in this book too. He analyzes his emotions, comes to new conclusions, but there's just a lot more than that, than just Nico. There are new characters, new ideas, a lot more action, drama, plot twists. I didn't talk about psychological and metaphorical aspects of this book, about this idea of change, those that are not ready to accept it. I feel like you can apply it to different aspects of society and your life, and I feel like this book also has some themes that people would find relatable. Maybe I'm not the best person to judge because I have not reread Riordan verse books as much as some other fans, but I didn't feel like Nico was out of character. He was a lot better at communicating with other characters, although these characters were outcasts and he was always better with them. He was also more rational when it came to his emotion, which is definitely the result of his character growth throughout all of the series. But we also had a lot of this signature Nico snark that is different from how the other characters talk. I'm also glad that there weren't any too annoying modern pop culture references that feel out of character for Nico, like in the previous book. Were some of the Solangelo moments kind of cringe and maybe resembling not a very good fanfiction? Yeah, probably, but it wasn't anything critical in my opinion. And also, I think I was probably a little bit too harsh on Will. He was there the whole time. The authors clearly were trying to include him on every step of the way. He was always there to help with a nice word, medical support, or just hot chocolate. I think that's kind of how he was described in the Trials of Apollo, as someone who has this unobtrusive presence and therefore might be ignored sometimes. He's not the one doing all of this flashy heroic stuff, but you can always rely on him, and there's also power in that. I think the moment from the book that proves my point is when Asterion talks about demigods that survived Tartarus, and he says that there were 3, and Will corrects him that there were 4, and he was the 4th, which shows that people might overlook Will sometimes. Leave all of the show-offy Stygian iron swinging to Nico, along with all of the cringy I am the Ghost King one-liners, and Will just be there to ensure that everything else goes smoothly. Also, now that Nico has grown, he doesn't need Will to step up for him to address people on his behalf. He can communicate well himself without intimidating others. So yeah, I decided to go easy on Will, but I still feel like there could be more for him. The way he feels also is important, and I feel like he also has a lot to tell. He has lots of unused potential, and I would know that. I've read lots of fan fiction. I think that the second half of the book is a lot stronger than the beginning. I think during the first few pages, there were some moments that were really throwing me off. Overall, the concept was solid, Hazel was badass, so thank you, Rick Riordan and Marco Shiro for this Nico D'Angelo adventure. At some point, I forgot about my bingo card. I'll look at it tomorrow. You're seeing it right now. How well did I do? I'm looking forward to season 2 of Percy Jackson on Disney+. Yesterday, I was wearing my Come Half-Blood necklace. It only has 1 bead because I painted it after season 1 was out. I'm gonna paint 1 bead after each season. Should I react to season 2 once it's out? Let me know. I also have never watched the Percy Jackson movies. So I don't know, maybe I should. Should I react to them as well? I also have a second channel about life, travel and studying. I'll leave a link to it, but it's in Ukrainian. Leave a like to this video and bye! Bувайте! Maybe I'll draw some Solangelo fan art. If I do, you'll find it on my Instagram.